Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio. Today we're so excited to have Warda Mohamed Abdullahi join us. She is the author of the memoir, Warda, My Journey from the Horn of Africa to a College Education. It is an inspiring read. I'm in the middle of it now, and she makes me homesick. She does for Africa. So I encourage you to go to her website, Warda Abdullahi, and that is Abdullahi. So Warda Abdullahi, and go to her website. It's on Amazon now. You can get the book now, right, Warda?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, welcome to the show. So glad to hear you. Yeah, I'll hear your voice and to have you here and reading your memoir. Like I'm serious. It makes me homesick. I just feel the sunshine and, but I know it was, your life has not been easy. You've had a lot of struggles coming from the Cape Horn. You've been all over Africa and then now here in this country. It had to have been a big change coming over here, or did going to South Africa kind of help coming to America?
Yes, it absolutely did, because before that, I was just a farm girl. I used to live in the farm, basically in the desert, enjoying life there. The only thing I knew was the farm and, traveling one place to another place with my grandparents. And then I was in Kenya for about 7 months, getting the babies ready to get into South Africa. And then, so being in South Africa, opened my eyes, and, that's where I started education. So, it's one of my favorite places.
I know, it's funny because we both lived in Port Elizabeth, and I was like, no way.
I know, that's so amazing.
Well, it just shows how connected we all are. And, the refugee story, what's interesting, when we came back to this country, I was 19, I think, at the time. So it was a long time ago. And I had to get my social security number. Nancy, my mom, normally on the show with us, we both had to, because she had a magazine in South Africa. And when we came over here, we had to get our social security numbers reinstated, kind of thing. Even though we had them, we had to get all the right paper, all the paperwork stuff.
Yes,
it's not
absolutely.
easy.
Yep.
It's not fun.
I know, and it never ends.
I know. And the lady at the Social Security office said, oh, you're a refugee, you can apply for this funding. And we're like, no, we have jobs. And because at that time, when we came over, South Africa was in a turmoil of change, positive change, but it was a little rough for different, and we're always the immigrant, even when we were there in high school, they told me I didn't have to really learn Afrikaans because I'm not from there. And then when I went to go and finish high school, then all of a sudden it was, oh yeah, you need to learn this now.
Oh my God, that must be a headache for you.
That was, I made it though. But you going from Ethiopia, right? Wow,
Yes.
You lived everywhere. Even is it Saudi Arabia too?
Yes, I was born in Saudi Arabia, and then was taken to Ethiopia, where I lived with my grandparents for about 10 years. And then from Ethiopia, I came to Kenya, and then from Kenya to South Africa, and then the US.
Wow. And what I love about your memoir, like I'm partway through it, is how you look at the history of your family too. So it's not just your story, you tie it to your father, your grandparents.
Yes, absolutely.
And also teaching people about the Somali culture. I think I don't think people really understand there's so many cultures in the continent.
Absolutely.
And
it's good to understand your culture and where you came from, and keep the history alive.
Right. You have your family tree, and so it's really, and looking at your dad was so industrious, such an entrepreneur, right?
I know, he went to everywhere. He travels around, looking for better opportunities.
And then coming to America, that to get into the country has got to be difficult, you know, too. I mean, it's just going through the whole process. What was it like your first day here? I mean, I know you lived in Michigan. That had to be different and cold. And you're in Minnesota. Like, come on, that's
Yeah,
cold too.
yeah. There's nothing different. I feel like Minnesota is actually colder than Michigan.
I think it is. Yeah, from what I can
Mhm.
tell.
Yeah.
But have you been welcomed here
In Michigan or Minnesota?
in the States as a whole, this
Uh,
country?
I would say yes and no, but
Mhm.
mostly no. And most of the things that, back home, whether it's in South Africa, Ethiopia, Kenya, whenever you move to a new place, you see people, people that looks like you and ready to, welcome you to the neighborhood or, show you around the city or where to buy grocery and everything. But here in the US, I don't know if it's just like culture thing. Um, the conversations starts with, "Hey, how are you? How are you doing? Good." And, bye, basically. "Oh, you new here? Oh, that's it." But back in South Africa, all the other countries I have lived, people, welcome you with open arm and they show you around. If you don't have transportation, they offer you. Here in the US, I have not seen that. It's just you. There's no like a strong community that,
Mm.
oh, yeah. Mhm.
We felt that a little bit, like, you know, when we lived in Kenya, I was a little kid, and we you know, I lived with two different tribes, um,
Okay.
and also a Muslim family at one point too,
Mhm,
and they were very nice and taught me so much as a
mhm,
kid. Everybody had responsibilities, but
mhm.
in you couldn't get away with anything naughty. Like you if you
Yeah.
did anything, everybody was watching out for the children, and the children were watching out for the children. And it was
Mhm.
like the village, no matter what, you can get
Yeah.
away with anything as a kid because it
Mhm.
just felt like it, you know, when they say it took a village, it really did. And so when we came here, it feels like everyone's so spread out, maybe. And
Yeah, there's not that like strong connection or like community helping each other or looking out for each other. Everybody's, I feel like what I notice is in South Africa, the time is like the day is so long and you can accomplish so much. But I don't know if it's just me, but in the US, you wake up in the morning, you go to work. By the end of the day, it's already 4:30, you get off work and you're so exhausted. Like forget about
mm,
helping anyone. You just want to go take a nap or, take a warm shower and, rest for the rest of the
mm,
evening. So the time here seems to be just so small.
mm. Well, also in winter, you know, I'm excited about the sun coming up these days
Uh-huh.
because you know I like to start out like 4 in the morning,
Hmm.
like when the sun is coming up. You know what I mean? That you
Yeah.
the sun's up in Africa, you know,
Yeah.
and let it stay up. You know, you just don't feel you. Yeah, it's a very interesting. And coming here, it also I
Hmm.
think for people to understand culture and religion, you know,
Hmm.
and understanding that is very difficult because of what happens in the news and also
Hmm.
just what's going on in the world. So it's
Yeah.
another education part, like to not just
Abs
go, you know, this
abs
religion is all bad or this is all good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would love to share you with this incident that happened to me 2016, right when I started university. We were new to Minnesota, and it was my first day of going to St. Catherine University. Unfortunately, it was I was taking evening classes, and my phone died right after my classes ended, and I didn't have a charger. We were new there, so my dad was started working as an Uber, and I couldn't get hold of him because my phone died. And I left the campus. I was just walking around. I didn't know like what direction I would take the bus or like what bus to take. So I was
Oh,
trying to
wow.
get, yeah, I was trying to get hold of my dad. But I mean, I was like, okay, well, I'm used to people like, if, especially the older generation, to be,
Hmm.
very respectful and So I was just wandering around trying to ask people, hey, I live in North Minneapolis. I'm trying to take the bus. So do you know any chance like which bus I can take or what direction? And just everybody's just staring at me like weirdly. And that was like when the election was going on 2016.
Oh,
Yeah, so imagine that. And then like I didn't give up because it was just getting dark and I really needed to get home. I was
mm,
scared, and it was getting darker by the time. And so I saw this, I asked a couple of people and everybody kept saying, oh, my phone is dead. I'm sorry. I hope you find somebody who, their phone is not
oh,
dead. Yeah. And it was really awkward because I mean, if I was in South Africa and I asked anybody I know, with no
mhm,
doubt they would let me use their phone, whether it's Kenya, Ethiopia, anywhere I have been
mhm.
before. So it was really shocking for me to experience that. And then I looked around and I saw two old couple just, having a nice walk together. And I was like, okay, well, since they're not a teenager or anything like that, they will, let you use their phone. And I walked to them respectfully and I greeted them. I was like, hello, I just started St. Kate's here. And my phone died and I'm trying to get home. I'm trying to get hold of my dad. Could I like please use your phone to call my dad? And oh my God, you would not believe the discrimination that man and what he
Oh,
said to me. It was heartbreaking, honestly.
no.
So the his wife was like, oh, I didn't bring my phone with, but my husband has a phone and he can let you use, right? And he's like, no, there is no way I will let anybody use my phone, let alone a Muslim woman. Go back to your shithole country, go back to where you came from, you terrorist.
Wow.
It was shocking. And like he wasn't saying it like softly, he was saying it so loud like everybody could hear in the street. It was so embarrassing, honestly.
Oh
um
man, I'm so sorry you went through that.
Absolutely,
We,
no, it's okay.
when we
Yeah.
left South Africa, we went to the Channel Islands.
Mm-hmm.
Because my grandmother, she's passed on now, but she had her next husband, she had married, and because my mother's father, her had passed away, and so we went there because we didn't even know where we were going when we left South Africa,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so we went there for a month, and when he picked us up from the airport, and we got to where he lived in this like apartment condo kind of complex. We got out of the car and we start walking to the front door, and his next door neighbor, like I can't say it on the air, but
Mm-hmm.
what she called us, and she told us exactly where to go, how to get there. And because we're Americans and we're not from England. And she
Mm-hmm.
just yelled at us so loud. It was, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's weird. I mean, everywhere we go, no matter what, it's like
Yeah.
people don't expect it for white people, they
Mm-hmm.
don't expect that to happen, but it does, but not on the
Mm-hmm.
extent of what will happen for you, especially, it's like yeah, being Muslim. I think people automatically think that about terrorists, and this country didn't even really understand about terrorists.
Yeah,
When we were
absolutely.
when we were here and 9/11 happened, I remember, because I'm sure the same thing you learned when I went to school
Mm-hmm.
in South Africa and even Kenya. You learned what a limpet mine was. Yeah, you knew
Yes,
what
yes.
an AK-47 looked like. If there was a
Mm-hmm.
package left in a busy place, you ran the other way, or told security. And in this country,
Absolutely.
we went to a mall. The first, I think, when we got here, my aunt took us to a mall,
Mm-hmm.
and I freaked out because there was like an empty a package. I went
Mm-hmm.
to security and went to pick it up, and I'm like, what? And I'm used to being checked for bombs. Like if you walk
Mm-hmm.
into a mall, you're checked for bombs,
Yeah.
you're checked, and there's none of that. So I had this fear everywhere we went for the first 6 months.
Yeah.
It was different.
Oh my goodness.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, it was just kind of a different fear, but this country didn't really know
Mm-hmm.
much about terrorism until 9/11 happened. I mean, obviously those who are in the military do, but
Mm-hmm.
they didn't
Yeah.
understand. And then everybody's a terrorist,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was, yeah.
Mm. I mean, and then coming into the country
Mm-hmm.
had to be, difficult, different, right? You're in a Michigan, right? Was that your first place, Michigan?
Yes, in Michigan.
Cold.
And yeah, it was, we haven't seen like big tall buildings, and the snow was just starting when we arrived there, and
Wow.
basically different environment, different people, culture. It was, everything was new to us, trying to learn the language because, they use a lot of slang in the US, and it's even in South Africa, like they wouldn't understand our accent. So like, the little English I knew was like not getting me around. It was hard. Like, what did you say? And I'm like, it was hard.
I almost got fired from my first job in this country because people didn't understand me. Now I sound American, but I had a very thick South African. I can hear your South African accent a little bit in there that you know.
Yeah.
I can hear it. I can hear it in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now I'm going to say yeah, and I'll sound like a Dutchman. But
Absolutely.
but yeah, it is interesting when you have to go through that complete change. And in Africa, like at least you have some kind of going from different countries, like Kenya to South Africa. It's very different, but it's still
Yeah.
familiar. There's a familiarity where here it's different. And having to learn English, it's not an easy language. And you going to college, I think, is really a big deal, and wanting to study medicine and studying medicine, it's huge. And education is everything. And in Africa, it is a huge deal to be able to go to school, whether it's primary school, high school, college is like, wow. And I think like now, coming to this country, I've noticed like you have to push your kids to go to school. In Africa, it was the opposite.
Yes, absolutely. And here is like one of the things that shocks me is, parents have to push kids to, even just graduate from high school. In South Africa or any other places that I have been, kids is so fortunate and like so happy, excited to be in school. Here it's like, oh my God, some people like if they take in the bus, they missed it. If it's just they don't have the same energy for it. And it's terrible. I mean, not everyone is lucky enough to have an education, but they don't see it that way. Like I remember my first day of school, I was shocked when I went to the classroom. I think it was my first class was English, and it was the 9th grade English, and the teacher was giving the lesson, and everybody was just on their phone, just talking,
Wow.
planning the weekend. And I was so confused. I looked around, and some kids was like even disrespecting the teacher and cussing her
Wow.
out. I was shocked. I came home crying, and I'm like, Dad, I don't think I want to go back to school. Maybe I should go to another one and see if there's any difference. And it's like, no, here in the United States, we don't know like how the rules and regulation is. So just stay in this school and you do whatever you need to do and don't worry about other people. I'm like, but how can I focus when kids start respecting the teacher and she has to stop the lesson? And I honestly was crying when I got there. And it's like, what happened? What happened? It
Wow.
was terrible. And right now, like, I mean, as you go on with your education, like they become mature, a bit mature, and they do respect the teachers. But you see like students being on their phone. In South Africa, you don't find that. Like everybody, is taking notes and asking questions and so determined to be in school. But here is like they just, I wouldn't say everyone, but it seems to be they are more careless, and I don't know what is
Mm,
causing that, but it's something that shocked me when I came here.
mm. I did, try to get out of school a bit at the end of my high school because I went to 16 schools. That's how many places we lived.
What?
I know, but
Oh, wow.
it was, it was a good
Uh-huh.
good experience for me, and you're always a new kid, and
Mhm.
but I have to tell you, we didn't have cell phones, when I was in school, and I didn't go to school here. But I
Mhm.
remember you were not allowed to even take a calculator for math. You were not allowed. You had to use.
Yes, that was one of the other thing. So my second period was math, and somehow my counselor put me into honors classes, like right when I got to school. I brought all my, transcript and report cards from South Africa. I mean, I was in the sixth grade, so they taught me from sixth grade to ninth grade. But I got all my certificates and everything. I had report cards, and I gave it to her, and she looked through. And I didn't know what, like, honor classes or AB class. But she put me into all honor courses, and I only noticed that after I finished high school. I was my last year applying for scholarships and and different universities, and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't even know. But my second period class was math, and I remember, the teacher welcomed me to the class, and just like introduce yourself, and after that she brought me this big calculator with all those graphic designs and everything. And I looked at her and I told her I don't need one. And she
Yeah.
laughed. Up till today, she makes fun of me. And I looked at her and was like, what am I supposed to do with it? And she's like, oh, you're going to use it throughout the class. And I'm like, oh, I think I'm good without it. And she makes fun of me every day. It's like, what are the things? She's so smart. She doesn't need a calculator. I'm like, it's not that I'm smart. It's just that I'm not used to.
When the only time we were allowed to have a calculator is when we started doing algebra and trigonometry, and
Yeah.
that's the only time. But and I learned math when we lived in Kenya. I went
Mhm.
to Snow White Nursery School. It was a
Mhm.
multicultural school, and I was the only
Mhm.
white kid. And people didn't understand me. I didn't understand them. And we all learned, and
Mhm.
my teachers were Indian. And let
Mhm.
me tell you, I learned my math like you wouldn't believe. Like it
Mhm.
was the best math education I ever had was in that little school. I was
Mhm.
like maybe 4 or 5 years old. I knew my 12 times table backwards,
Oh,
you know?
yes. And the teacher that day, she tried. I was like, I don't need it. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I know everything. I can just calculate things in my head. And she kept asking me this number, and everybody was shocked. Everybody was just looking at me. It's like, wow, this.
Mm.
It's just like it was. They were so amazed by it. How much knowledge I have in math. And they're like, and they keep asking me, like, what I have learned in there, and like how the um education system is there in South Africa. And the kids was really shocked.
The education was good. And I think we learned a lot of how and why before, so you would understand things. You know what I mean? There was a lot of teaching of understanding because I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, you just had to be able to think and understand, not just copy and
Absolutely.
do. There was a big part of learning to and understanding, like in math, you
Mm-hmm.
had to understand why and how the math, the times table worked to be able to
Absolutely.
get it. You can't just memorize
Mm-hmm.
because then you're going to fall, short, so it was just a really good education. I wonder it's also because maybe we didn't have as many supplies depending on where we were.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes,
for
absolutely.
you,
Mm-hmm.
how does your family feel about a woman going to college and studying medicine?
Mm. My family is very supportive of my decision. They always have been from the beginning.
Awesome.
Especially my dad.
Mm.
He didn't get the opportunity to go to, he did finish high school, but he didn't have the chance to get, further his education. At one point after he graduated high school, he went to, get an internship and work and made some money to pay off his tuition for at least the first year. And there was like a lot of droughts and food shortage going on at the time. And he came back to the farm and, he gave the money to his father to hold it on for him until, he gets all his papers ready and until he leaves to go to college. But he had like 2 weeks before his classes starts, and he was just getting ready, and my grandfather decided to buy that money with a camel, because he said that the family needed it to get
Mm.
water from this point to that point, and bought the rest with food and things they needed. And when my dad was about to leave, he's like, "Hey dad, saying goodbye to everybody," and he's like, "I have to leave, can I get the money?" And my grandfather
Oh,
calls to him and tells him, "This is what I use for the money, and I don't have any more, and I think you should just stay with us and help us get through this hard time of drought and food shortage." And
mm.
my dad was so devastated. He couldn't eat or sleep for days, and then after that he just decided to leave the farm, and just look for better opportunities since he can
Mm.
pursue his career in education. And
And he
so
stayed in touch with you the whole time, right? He
yeah,
sending
yes.
you things and,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
wow.
Yes. Yeah, and so because of that, his goal was always to help me through getting a higher education and being a role model for not only my sibling but every girls and young boys out there, and
Mm.
that anything is possible.
Well, your dad's amazing, reading his story, and he just keeps going and keep trying, and even running the shops in South Africa, what was going on there, because
Mm-hmm.
they weren't tolerant either of anybody migrating in. There's
Uh-huh.
it's a hard road, and I want people to understand that coming to America or a different country, there it is challenging. And so it's not that America is bad, it is just very, very different. And
Mm-hmm.
when living in Ethiopia, that is, you know, I lived out in the bush for a while, little kid time, not a very long time, but also I learned how to herd cattle. People, I rarely get to talk about this stuff, but I
I
learned. And
know.
it's like you go look at a goat, and at that time you go say hi to the goat. I remember the first time in Kenya, and I think it was Nancy. She went and looked at a goat, talked to the goat, and they cut the goat's neck right there, and that's what we ate.
Oh,
And
I know.
most, you know what I mean? And most people will kind of like freak out, but
Mhm. I remember,
yeah.
I remember it was an Eid celebration, and when I arrived in South Africa,
Oh,
and we got a goat and sheep, and we were having a big, party in the house, and my dad brought, some goats and sheep, and it was at the back of the house, and my sibling was so excited. They named them, and they were like,
mhm.
"Okay, can we just keep them?" And my dad tells them, "No, it's time, we slaughter them and eat them." And most of them decided to be vegetarian. They said, "We cannot eat."
No, that's not going to
Yeah,
happen. So it's hard. It's hard.
it is.
Oh, but when you
Mhm.
talk about drought,
Mhm.
something we went through some drought in South Africa when we first got
Mhm.
there, and it was brutal. And when you see, even in Kenya, there were some areas that went through some severe drought. It's real.
Mhm.
And this
Yeah.
country is, through climate change, we're about to really see it here.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's more than not watering your lawn. This drought part it's
Mhm.
really
Yeah,
difficult to live through,
it is.
especially when you're living on the land in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is not an easy place to live. It isn't, and political unrest. That's what I want people to understand. What would that like, where it's not safe. Sometimes when you're out in the boonies, or out in the bush, the Bosveld. When you're out in the Bosveld and on the farm, it can be, but it's not when you are going through a drought at the same time. It's a very difficult.
It is, and it's very hard, and young girls and kids cannot understand. Oh, we don't have water today. I remember young kids would cry, and there's no milk because there's no water to give to the goats and sheep or even camel. It was so hard, and the parents can't do nothing about it. And I remember we would travel from one place to another, and it would take us like maybe a week.
Wow. Oh, and on foot a lot of times, right? As well.
Yes, everything was on foot. Everything was foot.
No wonders, nomads. And this is something, I think what's so important about your story is for people to have an understanding. It's so much of what's on the news is very opinionated without people having a good understanding and being outside of this country too. And yes, there's people are scared about people coming over the borders, and but I think it's not just this country, it's around the world. People are going to move according to what's happening with the climate and politically, wars. Look at Ukraine right now, right? It's similar. Yes. It's a very similar situation.
It is. And one of the reasons I, decided to write my book was I wanted, people that is not familiar with immigrants just immigrating from one place to another. It's not, our choice. It's not like we having a vacation, but we just trying to find a better opportunity for ourselves and our family and friends, and trying to better ourselves. But most people look at it as it's our choice.
It's really true. I think. Yeah, it's and especially for children, they are here, and we've got to take care of them, whether they're yours or not. I believe that. It's so important that we do look at. You can be born into a war zone. That's why I keep going back to Ethiopia, because so many people starved in Ethiopia, and still to this day, and there's still unrest in Ethiopia. Just when you think it's all going to get better, it doesn't. And I think that's that's Africa, man.
I know. It's so hard. It's so hard. Yeah. My dad, my grandfather is, getting older and older. So my father visits him every, 3 months to see how he's doing. Oh, wow. Yeah, he just came back about 2 months ago, and he was just telling me how the situation in Ethiopia is. Like, some people like basically have no water. Some people, they goes without food for days, and he went into the desert and just visiting extended families, and some kids have no shoes, just walking around, and it's really hard. And with the little money he took with him to give it to my grandfather, or close families, like it's really bad here. And it was terrible. And he was literally crying on the phone. It's like, the situation, I thought it would be, getting better, but it's just getting worse. And everybody, like the medical attention there is not as good as it here. And, I was taking my grandfather from place to another place. And it's just, it's not easy.
Especially with COVID. I don't think COVID helped at all.
No,
that made things hard.
It made everything worse, and people are just trying to survive, and it was terrible. And the goats and everything was dying because of the drought, and people are left without nothing.
Mm.
Mhm.
That's sad. And then, all of a sudden here comes rain, right? And the earth is
Yes.
not ready for it either. It's like
Hmm.
this, it's
Yeah.
it's a very, oh, I really miss Africa, as a whole, and
Hmm.
Kenya. And Kenya was just special, special. It's just that I think because, I was there when I was a very, very young kid,
Hmm.
and it's magic.
Yeah, I know. Right now, my family lives there at this point. They moved 2020, November back to Kenya.
Oh,
My dad built a house for my family there, and everybody's there except the two oldest who came back to do their one is finishing high school, the other one finished and just started college, but the rest
mm,
of the family is in Kenya, and they actually love it there.
mm-hmm,
My dad was like, "Oh, the kids are just getting too Americanized and forgot about their
really,
culture."
really.
So he took them there, and actually they actually love it. I remember my little brother the first time he saw a cow, and he was so afraid of them, and finding a little goat, he's like, "Oh my God, they're so cute." Yeah.
Oh, I really miss Kenya. And, it's interesting, growing up in Africa, it's and understanding the Muslim culture, that's how you woke up in the morning. You would hear the prayer time. And I miss
Absolutely.
that. I miss that. Cape Town used to have that in South Africa, Cape Town. I used to go
Mhm,
visit my friend, and I'd wait for it. I'd be up just to wait to hear.
mhm,
Mombasa, I remember Mombasa in Kenya being more
mhm.
like that too. Just more of a
Yeah.
Muslim community where we were. And I had a
Mhm,
good friend in South Africa that worked for my mom, Nancy, with the magazine
mm,
there. And we went all over, and I did business in the Muslim communities, and it was kind of unheard of at that time
mm,
for a white girl
mhm.
to be walking in and try to do business. And yeah, people didn't quite get that. And I could. It wasn't easy, but I could. And just it was just such a cool, I don't know, people were so not I forward thinking. Let's
Mm.
make something happen. Like, we and just so good at business, entrepreneurship, and
Yeah.
really good
Yeah.
at it,
Mm,
and it was like, wow, we need to learn. And so not lazy, man.
mm,
And so I was able to go into different community with the magazine, and I was selling advertising, and be
mm,
able to do that. And it was because of respect, understanding, prayer times, and uh
mhm,
and to be a woman, though, to do, well, a young girl at that time,
mhm.
it wasn't easy. But it was
No.
about, you had to keep going back and be persistent, and
Mhm.
build respect. So
Uh,
everything took time with relationships.
Yeah, that connection is important and trying to be respectful.
Hmm. Yeah,
Absolutely. Mhm.
that's kind of what I want to see more of here, is for us to all kind of just, actually, we're recording on World Cultural Diversity Day. Did you know that today's World Cultural Diversity Day? We're recording today, but World Refugee
Really?
Days.
I.
Yes, it's
Mm.
good. Um,
Oh,
you know, World Refugees coming Day is coming up June 20th.
yes. Mhm.
And as we look towards that, I mean, what do you want to see in regards to understanding? Because, America is a melting pot of cultures, which is exciting to me. It means we have the
Mhm.
best food.
For sure.
But what would you like to see in regards to
Yeah,
unity?
in regards to unity, I would love to see when an immigrant immigrates to the United States, just, neighbors being more welcome and, offering their service, whether it's just, taking them to the city and show them around where they can buy, their necessities such as food, or, showing them places that they need, or just
Mm,
showing them around and being supportive.
mm. Yeah, I agree. When we got to Florida,
Hmm.
um, we went to Kissimmee one night,
Okay.
and we met some Kenyans,
Mm-hmm.
and I could still remember a little Swahili.
Mm-hmm.
And this couple, they had their like they had their shop, but they were cooking in the back,
Mm-hmm.
and they let us have chapatis. I couldn't believe it because I miss eating chapatis. And
Oh, I love it. It's one of my favorite
oh
dish.
my gosh, and it's not the same here for some reason,
Mm.
and maybe I just don't
Mm.
make it as but it. I was like, they just to have that connection. I kept going back there because of that familiarity, and it just was so. They were so nice to me because I was new, and made me feel a little bit more comfortable. And I think sometimes that's what happens is you start to connect with cultures and you understand more, where it should be all cultures connecting and helping each other,
Yeah. That like when you come to the US or any other place that you migrate to, you remember the first few days. It's like you will never forget those days because it's your first impression. And so that's important,
Mm,
when somebody immigrates and they, reside next to you as a neighbor, it's just nice to be very welcoming, even if you can't do a whole lot, giving them direction and at least taking them, and showing them around the city and ask them if they need anything
mm,
from the store, anything, if they need places to go, and those things is very important because I remember my dad, we were trying to make appointments because we needed immunization record, like we had to get that before we can even go to school, but we had no one to take us, and we didn't know, like we didn't have any transportation, but those
wow.
things are very important, and we didn't know like what's the closest hospital that we can, clinic that we can get immunization and our vaccines and things like that, or the nearest store or anything like that. It's a very important.
Yeah, and know where you're safe to go as well. Like,
Mhm.
and also, not a language barrier. Language is another part, but
Mhm.
I remember Nancy and I going to the grocery store here, and we didn't understand. I mean, and we're English,
Mm.
why are there 20 butters? Why do we have so many different types of flour? What's wrong with the first one? We didn't understand, and we ended up with a grocery cart. I still call them trolleys,
Mhm.
full, and we got so overwhelmed we left the store. We just walked out. You
I
know,
I remember when we first arrived here, my younger brother and I went together and we were trying to find things that were, familiar with us, but we couldn't find anything. And we just standing there looking at each other like, what can we buy? And like,
what is this?
yes, is this even like permissible for us to eat? Because, and then he's like, let's read the label, then we can figure it out together. Come
Oh
on.
boy. Read the label, and that's got like 20 chemicals in it.
And it's like,
That's oh,
and
that's
the words are so big, like it's hard to even just pronounce it, let alone understand. And he's like, it has this much of this, and I'm like, what is that?
I know.
It's
See,
like, I don't know.
you can eat bread. That's what you understand bread, and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
but it's still different. It's not the same. It's not,
It
this.
no, it's uh, we used to love Sasko. I don't know if you remember from South Africa. And here, like they didn't have it. And it's like, can we actually find that type of bread? I'm like, this is not South African.
No, no, no.
Let's just find another bread.
Yeah, it's difficult. And what about, we're used to some basics like
Mhm,
millipop, and I don't know
mhm,
what
mhm,
they call it, putu in Kenya,
mm,
it's different here. You can't get it that way. It's polenta kind of grits if you're in the
mhm.
South. It's just different. What do
Yeah.
you like to eat that's American food wise?
Um, I would say I love French fries.
Yes.
Yeah, I love French fries, and I love what is it called? Tacos. I eat
Mm-hmm.
pizza.
That's good. That's always good. Yeah, you can't
Yeah,
go wrong with pizza and tacos. It's
I know.
different. It's different, but it's the tacos. Mexican food is as close as I can get to food from Africa because of the
I,
spice.
I know. Yes, yes. I love taco. I remember I was not familiar with like Michigan, and like since I was not driving, we didn't have a transportation. We were not going out a lot. And I had a mentor. Her name is Mackenzie William.
Oh,
She
in
helped
your
me.
book, yes.
Yes, yes. And I remember she took me to this taco place one day, and I thought the appetizer was the full meal. And I I ate the guacamole. Like I thought
Oh,
that was, yeah, I ate that for lunch basically. And when the taco came, I was like, I'm
oh.
full. Why did you order more?
It's alert. That's. I think you make such a good point about that not understanding.
Mm-hmm.
My when we went to the mall with my aunt, she goes and takes us for pizza,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, okay, I know pizza, and then she's like, have root beer, and then she made sure you have to have the double size or whatever, and I'm like, why would anybody drink that much? Everything is the super size, make it big, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, that's not. Well, I
Yeah.
mean this, but I don't know if it could be like that in South Africa now. I don't know, but
Mm-hmm.
it's such a different thing. I'm going, that's enough soda for like a village.
I
It's that
know,
much of
I
it.
know.
It's
Absolutely. Yeah.
big
And
difference.
And I remember trying to, like, honestly love the taco. It was so good. And I really wanted to eat the whole, all of my tacos, but I couldn't. And she's like, you don't need to force yourself. We can just come back here.
That's
We can just come back here another day. And she's like, do you really want to take it home, maybe? And I was like really shy. It's like, they actually allowed you to take home.
see, I know it's different. You see,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is like it's something where, when you say wanting someone to take you around to explain how things work because it's different, even everything's
Mm-hmm.
on the wrong side. Doors are on the wrong side. It's especially going from
And
your background of,
yeah,
of being out in the bush on the farm, right? It's different.
absolutely, absolutely. And I remember this other time, my mentor and her parents took me out for my birthday. And I remember, because like I wasn't familiar with the food, and I couldn't eat anything that has like meat. And I told them, like, I just want to have cake, okay?
Cool.
And they were like, you're gonna have cake for lunch? And and then her mother was like, let the girl it's her birthday, let her eat cake for lunch, that's fine. And I honestly ended up eating that, because like the restaurant where we went to, I don't remember the name, but it like everything they had, there was meat in there, and I didn't feel comfortable eating it. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I ended up eating I ended up eating cake for lunch. And I mean, this is one of the reasons we moved here in Minnesota. You will find so many, traditional um restaurants like Somali. You find so
Oh
many.
really?
Yeah, it's everywhere you go there is an
Mm.
Somali restaurant. And whenever my mentor comes over, she usually stays with us, and we go out together. And this one time, it was me, my father, and her, and one of my sibling, my brother, and we went to this Somali restaurant. And then they brought us, like, we had rice and like different dishes like spaghetti, meat, and everything. And I was like, hey, do you want to, like, they brought a spoon because she was with us, but in our culture we usually just wash our hands and
Mhm.
eat with our hands. And she's like, no, 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 I'm good too. I'm gonna eat with my hand. And that's what she did. And she's like, this is really amazing. It's new to me, but it's something that I can do, instead of just looking for a spoon. And she felt comfortable because, she
That's
saw us.
awesome.
yeah, she got used to our culture, and like she stays with us, and we make, Somali dishes together. And her
Nice.
favorite one so far is chapati and also
Mm.
malawa. And
Oh, man,
yeah,
I
so
remember as a kid, a bowl of water going around, and
mhm,
everything was hands by hand. And,
mhm,
because I'd go eat in the huts, then it would just go around,
yeah.
and
Mhm,
it just didn't, and being able to use the chapati like a bread was almost like your fork here, you just,
mhm.
and even ugali, that's what ugali, putu
Oh
was
yeah,
South African.
yes. Mhm,
Ugali was so
mhm,
different because it was like a dough almost, like you could sop up the meat
mhm.
juices. Yeah, now I'm hungry.
Abs. Same.
But it's wonderful to hear, and I want people to understand. I mean, it's just, this is a journey that you have been on, and
Mhm,
now, you're married, you've got children, you're still studying, right, to be a doctor, to be a
mhm.
family
Yes.
doctor. That's
Mhm.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yes.
What's it like raising children now, and then doing it in a different, country?
Mhm. Honestly, it's not easy. When I went 2021, I went back to South Africa, and my husband lives there. So I spent from February
Mm,
to end of August in South Africa. And during that time, I was a full-time student, and with COVID, everything was online. But when I was there, I had so much support. Like, um, if I'm taking a test, if I have a test to study, if I have anything that I need to do for school, the kids would stay with my husband's parents or his
mhm.
sisters, or yeah, I had there's like that support outside of the US. But here you are alone, and it's so different, and it's so hard to focus,
Mm.
especially when you have two kids. It was a
That's
bit
the
easy, yeah, it was a bit easier for when I had my first one. It's you just focus on one person, but now it's two, and
Mhm.
they both young, and you have to make sure they don't hurt themselves. And my family was here when she was born, my first daughter. But after I had the second one, they're not here any longer, and it's just me trying to juggle everything and
It's
try to
hard.
be it is so hard, honestly. And especially when they are young, it's hard to get enough sleep. And if you get no sleep, that means your day is just gonna be
Mhm.
terrible, basically.
Well,
Yeah.
it's hard. I think, going back to that village, and
Hmm.
one thing, I hear off a lot is, especially for single moms,
Hmm.
they can't catch a break. It's like, and then you have to pay for childcare, and then sometimes
Absolutely.
your job doesn't even make sense money
Hmm.
wise. It's like, here's, give my paycheck right to the
Hmm.
childcare place.
Uh,
It's a hard
yeah.
thing for single moms, which you're not
Hmm.
single, but you're in that position,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's difficult. Well,
It
everybody, you better buy
is.
her book. Buy her book.
Hmm.
Yeah, no.
They won't regret it. They should.
No. No, I enjoy your book, and I love hearing about camels, so apparently you don't like them like I do. But
Because I was that tiny kid when I was young. I was so skinny. I barely used to eat, and every time I go near them, they would kick me. So that's one of the reasons I really don't like them that much. Uh,
well, I love to hear that you were skinny. You didn't get to eat that much, and I know your grandfather stole your milk, but but everyone has to read the book to get these stories. But
Mhm.
it's wonderful to hear. Now you're having birthday cake for your birthday lunch. So it's changed a lot. So it's a lot of good things.
it
What
it have.
on a positive note, what is your favorite thing about being in America? What's your favorite? Just what makes you smile here in this country?
Um, there's many opportunities is one thing that makes me happy because if you are smart enough, there is so much resources and opportunities out there, and it's just a matter of you explore it. Whatever resource you need, if you look for it, you will find it. And you in Ethiopia, I wasn't able to get education. We couldn't afford it. Or in Kenya, I stayed there for a while and it was just too expensive. And even in South Africa here, high school is free basically. You don't have to pay for it. You just have to go and do your best. But in other countries and out there in the world, I remember it was 6 of us that was going to an private school in South Africa, and it was just so hard for my father to pay for it. But when we came here, at least like my father didn't, he didn't have to think about the tuition here to pay for us. So there is so much resources out there. It's just for you to figure out your life and go after them.
I love it. I love it.
And stay in school. Stay in school, kids. It's important. Honestly, I look at education as if you are blind, you don't know what's around you. But honestly, if you're educated, and it's like you are able to see everything. It opens your eyes so much and leads you to so many different opportunities. So don't take the education you have and all the great resources for granted, because so many kids out there is hoping and praying to have an education, but you have it. So go after it and study hard.
Agreed. We have a cardiologist, Dr. Jackie Ubani's on our show every third Wednesday. And she's from Nigeria.
Oh, wow.
And her family moved here when she was a young girl. She served in the army, became a cardiologist, electrophysiologist, and a best-selling author. So how about that? So I just had to share that with you. She did it. You're going to do it. So it's wonderful. It's a hard road, but
absolutely. And I mean, I lived in the desert most of my life, and I had no education. I started, my education journey at the age of 11. Imagine, I didn't know not even the alphabets.
Wow.
So just imagine that if I could do it and, accomplish my goal and, get through high school and university and planning to hopefully one day get my medical degree, I believe that anyone can do it. It's just a matter of you trying and doing your best and asking for help when you can figure out things, because you will always find a mentor. You will always find somebody who knows better than you that can help you and lead you through and show you the direction of anything that you want to be.
Agreed. Well, thank you, Warda. It has been such a pleasure having you on the show. And thank you for writing your memoir, sharing your story, and talking about chapatis. I'm hungry now.
Same here.
Everybody, again, go to Warda Abdullahi, and that's Warda Warda, and then it's ABDULLAHI.com. The book is called Warda, My Journey from the Horn of Africa to a College Education. Very inspiring. Definitely have your kids read the book too. This should be in school libraries, college libraries. And it'll open your mind. It's, and it takes you to a different world, a different country, maybe, depending on where you live in the world. But definitely a inspiring story. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my story with you and the world. Really appreciate it.